Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything else will be added. Hi, my name is Angelique Drummond. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. I moved to Cleveland, Ohio with my mother and sister at the age of 2. My mother had told us when we were younger that my father was abusive and he had thrown her down the stairs. So she packed up her babies and she left. My mother continued to date guys who were abusive. The behaviors and patterns was the same. So me and my sister basically was home alone by ourselves. And it left my sister to have to babysit her baby sister. My sister did not like being my babysitter. She hated having to watch after me. She often would cover my head with a pillow at night to try to smother me. She thought that would be the solution to her problem. At the age of 4, me and my sister was taking piano lessons, and the piano teacher's nephew began to touch me. He often would take me upstairs when no one was around. And I had no understanding. I just knew I felt uncomfortable. I knew what he was doing was wrong. I was afraid, confused. I was mad. I knew I couldn't tell anyone. My mom just one day up and left. We wake up. She calls and says, "Why are you guys still there?" And we like, "'Cause we live here." And she says, "Well, I'm not coming back. You guys need to find somewhere to go." I was so confused because I had had a baby, and the baby was 5 months old. I'm 16. My sister went on to go live with a friend, and I was just left alone with this baby. And I'm actually really a baby still myself. I found a family who had empathy for me. I was dating their son. Eventually, the situation had turned sour because he began to beat me up and he had become abusive. So I left that place, found the baby's father, moved in with his parents, and they tried to take my baby from me because I was only 16. So I fled with my baby. I bounced around, I couch surfed anywhere that anybody would let me stay until I was able to find a place, but that was even hard because I was only 16. How many places would allow a 16-year-old to move in an apartment? A neighbor that I shared my story with, she advised me to go to the courts. We didn't even know anything, numbers, address, so they emancipated me at the age of 16. I'm 17, I find my mother, and she was still on the same vicious cycle, dating different guys. She eventually pulled a knife on me, so I ended up fleeing with the baby. I met a guy who was really, really nice, but because of all the abuse and trauma, I didn't know how to be nice back. And I really wanted to love because I didn't have my father, I didn't have my mother, and the only thing I had was the baby, and I thought the baby was my cushioning. I love this baby. This baby loved me back, but I didn't know how to take care of this baby. So I wanted to stay with this guy who was a really good guy, and I ended up getting pregnant again. So I had his baby. We get married. I'm 18. I end up leaving. I left town and I left him. After leaving my husband, I dated several different guys. I get myself in another situation where I'm abused again. I'm jumped on. The guy banged me up. I lost my hearing in my ear on my left side. And so I grabbed some things. I got my daughter, I jumped in a car, and I ended up in Atlanta, Georgia. We had to find a place to stay. I heard that there was a girl that I knew lived there. When I get there to where she lives, it's about 20 people living in a 3-bedroom apartment. We slept on the floor for a while, we bounced around, and I had no money. My baby was crying, saying she was hungry. I didn't know how to feed her, where our next meal was gonna come from. I met a guy at the mall, and he offered us something to eat. The situation was really bad, so he ended up offering us to stay at his house, and it was really amazing because we stayed there, and we stayed there for the next 2 years. My son wasn't with us, so I went and got my son. It was a disaster. One thing led to another. I leave this guy, get with another guy. I get married again. I'm not divorced from either of them. So I end up with this guy. We come back to Cleveland. We end up apart. I end up getting beat up really bad by a boyfriend. Left for dead. I'm bloody. I don't know where the blood is coming from. I didn't want my children to see me like that. I eventually started getting sick. I was unable to take care of the children. I was in and out of the psych hospitals. I began to have anxiety really bad. I wasn't really able to hold on to my job because I'm now living without my children, and I'm broken. I'm bouncing around. Drugs and alcohol became a motivating factor in my life. I began to drink. I began to use drugs. I began to hang around people that was all they did. I began to use drugs and alcohol due to all the trauma, past trauma, and unresolved issues going on in my life. I didn't want to feel anymore. I didn't want to feel the pain, and drinking made it go away. One day I met a guy, we hung out, but when I was getting an apartment and I said I wanted to go, he told me I couldn't. I was trapped in a situation for around about 5 months. I was missing, I was devastated. Nobody had reported me missing. There was drugs, prostitution, human trafficking. It was a ring of people staying in a hotel. During the time of my abduction, there was multiple drugs: alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, pills, PCP, you name it. We were doing it. They made me do it even when I didn't want to. I was burnt with boiling soup. Anytime I tried to get away, my foot was broken. I couldn't get away, so now I'm beat up. After months going by without eating, just doing drugs and alcohol on a daily basis, eventually I began to befriend him so that the beatings would slow down. I told him I was pregnant, couldn't have any children. However, he started going to sleep on me a lot, so I made a phone call. I snuck and called one of my children's father. His fiance answered the phone. She immediately called my ex-husband. He said she's been missing for 5 months. Star 69 the phone. My ex-husband calls the phone, and he said, "Don't say anything. I'm coming with the police." I was so afraid that he would get hurt because during the course of my kidnapping and all the months and we bounced around, there were other people that realized I was in a situation that I didn't want to be in. But those people got hurt trying to save me. I pretended I was going to sleep, and I laid there and waited for the opportunity, and I just ran. It was in the wintertime, and I was running, and I could hear the guy chasing behind me. A horn blew, and it was my ex-husband. And I jumped in, and I was screaming, "Pull off." And when the guy ran to the door to grab it, the police came out of nowhere. They grabbed him, and I was shaking so bad, my ex-husband said, "What do you want to do?" I began to cry and tell him I wanted to see my babies because I hadn't seen them, and I didn't think that I would ever see them again. And I said I wanted my mom. I hadn't seen her. I didn't have a relationship with my mother. But that's the first thing you think of when you're in trouble. I just wanted my mother. He pulled off. I never made the police report. I don't know what happened to the guy who took me and who kept me, who beat me, who raped me, and who forced me to do drugs, even when I didn't want to. When I was rescued, my ex-husband took me to his home and he contacted my other child's father. They said they were going to come up with a plan. They cleaned me up so that I could see my two girls. When my ex-husband came in, he had a ticket in his hand and said he had contacted my mother. I'm on a Greyhound bus. I lost absolutely all of my things. I had no clothes, no money. I'm living with my mom. I'm having nightmares. I'm seeing this guy everywhere. I wake up, he's there. He's standing over me at night. I'm tired of it. I get up, go find a girl that looked like she was on the street corner using drugs. I told her if she could find me drugs, I would buy her some. I didn't think the drugs would follow me, but they came along right with me. And that's when I began using drugs on my own. During this time while I'm in Cleveland, I began to use drugs on a regular basis now. Things are not getting better. Drink trouble. I wanted help. I wanted the nightmares to stop. They stopped because I'm drinking and drugging. I never was able to think without the drink. I'm bitter. I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm hurt. I don't understand why all these things had to happen to me, but there was light at the end of the tunnel. I went to Murtis Taylor one day and I reached out for help, and Murtis Taylor began to give me the help that I needed. I went in treatment in June. In 2006, I began to get the help that I needed to get off the drugs, but the mental health issues were still unresolved. The nightmares are still there. I'm sober, I'm doing meetings, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. It became difficult because I needed the support. So I go back to AA, I'm doing meetings, now I'm clean and I'm sober. It's 2008, I get a sponsor, I get a home group. I get active in AA. I become a GSR. Although I relapsed in 2007, I went back to school once I got sober. I have an associate's degree in human services. I continued on to obtain my bachelor's degree in social work. I began to work with teenagers. I got a job in gang intervention. I continued as a case manager. During that time, I began to pour back into the community because of all the pain and the hurt and the trauma and the unresolved issues that was going on in my life. I didn't want those things to happen to another human being, so I began to work with teenagers. I felt like if you can help them and get them right there at their point where they're most vulnerable and going into transitioning into adult, we can make a difference. And I can share my story with women who have kind of been through similar situations. Although life had a lot of bumps along the road, I think my journey ended up for a positive. I minister to women. I feed the homeless. I go into nursing homes and bring a word to them. So I've turned my story around. I've continued this journey and became a chemical dependency counselor, helping other addicts just like me. If I had one thing to share with people who may experience or go through anything that I've gone through, one thing I would say is don't give up. Now that my life has come around into full circle, I have my children back in my life. Even my mom have a really good relationship today. I get to take care of my mom now, and I'm really excited about that because I'm sober and because I'm clean. So today I'm a better mom, a better sister, and a better friend.